The bed I lay on was comfortable enough, but not plush. The walls were a pale blue with no windows. An IV ran into my arm, and a tangle of cables connected me to a device that quietly monitored my vitals. There was a white corridor outside the open door. The closed door on the wall opposite my head had a toilet sign. Hospital. I sat up, putting my feet on the floor. I felt weak. At first I wasn't sure I was feeling it, but a faint thrum carried through the floor. Deck, my mind corrected. Hospital ship. I'd no sooner deduced that than a nurse, or what I assumed was a nurse, walked in. She was short, no more than 150 centimeters, covered in a fine, taut fur with delicate limbs and graceful fingers. Large eyes sat aside her head gave her a field of vision far beyond 180 degrees. A striped tail swished behind her as she walked, and she put on a smile that could melt the coldest of hearts. Something about her felt familiar. "You mustn't try to get up yet." Her voice was somewhere between a purr and a growl. One of her eyes focused on me, while the other seemed to be watching the device. "I'm Joxy, the night nurse. Now that you're awake, the doctor and physical therapist will be in to go over your next steps. Little joke for you." People of her species are called Jortian, but call themselves Anushi, in the same way we call ourselves human, but others call us Earthian. I wasn't sure how I knew that. I just did. Just like I knew that this ship was a human design. My voice was weak and raspy, and it took far too much energy to make a simple inquiry. "You... Anushi... ship? Human?" "Exactly." She helped me get my legs back on the bed and tucked me back in. "How?" I didn't have the energy to get the words out. How did I end up here? What happened? The more I thought about it, the more I realized how little I knew. I am human. I am a man, I think. My right hand went by instinct to my chest, where I traced scars on both sides with a patch of hair between. I am a man. I am a human. My name is... I don't know. My job is... I worked in a pizza place in high school. Memories newer than that elude me. I try to get the nurse's attention before she leaves. Even with her back turned to me, she sees the slight raise of my hand and turns back around. "I can't..." I point at my head. "Who am I?" "I'll let the doctor explain, but it'll come back to you, Mr. Jacobs." She left without another word. Jacobs, I wondered. Is that right? It felt familiar, but something felt off. Something missing. The doctor entered. Her uniform designated her as a captain in the United Federation of Sol Navy, equivalent to a colonel in the outer services. I considered that I might have been in the military with how easily I picked that up. "Ma'am," I said, with as much gusto as I could muster, which wasn't much at all. "It's good to see you awake," she said. "Can you tell me your name, rank, and serial number?" No, ma'am. I know some things, like I'm human, the nurse is Anushi, this is a human hospital ship, and you're a Navy captain, the same rank as a ground-pounder colonel. But I don't know how I know them. She said my name is Jacobs, but I'm not sure." The doctor wrote some things on her pad, then looked up at me. "Your name is Ryan Jacobs. You're a corporal, at the moment, in the UFS Marine Corps, and you've been in a coma for 43 days. We're still a month out from home, but when we get there, you've got an award, a promotion, and an early retirement waiting. I'm Dr. Wells, and I'm the primary physician on your case. You suffered some serious head trauma, along with your arm," she said, nodding toward my left hand. I flexed my left hand. It felt half numb. I looked at it, or tried to. It wasn't there. My arm stopped at a bandage just past my elbow. Where? How had I not noticed? How bad did I mess my head up? What had happened to me? We found that replaying your helmet cam footage can help bring back memories faster. She looked grim. It's not pretty. It's likely to be traumatizing, but it can help. Do you want to try? I do. Yes, ma'am, Captain Wells. You don't have to be formal here, Ryan. You can just call me Doc. Thanks, Doc. How soon can I? Tomorrow morning. You need a good night of non-comatose sleep first. I nodded and let my head rest back on the pillow. After she left, I watched the hallway for a bit. Mostly humans in Navy uniforms, but at least 10% of the traffic were Anushis in civilian clothes. Something about that caused an ache in my chest. Exhaustion overtook me, and I let it, before the ache could become sobbing. It didn't help. My own weeping woke me in the morning. A pair of warm hands held my right hand, a comfort when I didn't know I needed it. I turned to see a rough and tumble-looking petty officer. Tears pooled in his dark brown eyes. "You're not alone," he said. I looked at his name tag. "Thanks, Maso." I went to wipe my eyes with my left hand, and his absence made the tears start again, this time from frustration. Maso helped me pull myself together and eat the light breakfast he brought. He said 2 more meals and they could remove the feeding tube that went up my nose and down my throat. After breakfast came the part I was both dreading and excited for. A chance to figure out what had happened, and maybe, just maybe, get my memories back. In the reflection of the goggles for the immersion viewer, I saw my bandaged shaved hand. I felt to the edge of the bandage with my hand, and Dr. Wells told me to be careful of it. Part of my skull was still out until the brain swelling was completely gone. I won't recount the nightmare I relived. It involved an attack on an Anushi colony by an unknown enemy. We were evacuating civilians, including a hospital. That's where I recognized Joxy. We were just getting going when the bombing started. While the other squads began working their way up, I led my squad to the 3rd floor to work our way down. The entire 3rd floor was the children's ward. Anushi kids are all eyes, teeth, and tails, and cute as hell because of it. They grow into them, eventually, but a ball of fluff with huge eyes and buck teeth. Well, we got most of them out. The ones that could walk, and those that could be carried in our arms. It was an incubator, the first of 9 running on battery power that I was lugging down the stairs when the bomb hit the wall next to me. My helmet recorded it all, even after the shockwave knocked me unconscious. My hand and wrist were mangled, along with the incubator and the fragile infant inside. Then the 3rd floor collapsed on me, and the recording cut out until I was dug out of the rubble 56 minutes later. The incubators. I had dragged them all close to the stairwell to speed things up. Had I doomed 9 Anushi children? What about the other side of the 3rd floor? Would they have survived there? I didn't realize the questions I was asking myself. I was asking out loud. The voice I heard was that of Joxy. "You saved 66 out of 67 children that day. The incubators were lucky. A bomb on the roof destroyed the other half of the 3rd floor, and only the area above the stairwell collapsed. The incubators were sitting there in the open, dusty but safe." I felt the fur of her hands as she lifted the immersion viewer off my head. "You Marines saved almost everyone in the hospital." Her smile was bright, but I could see the sadness she tried to hide. "Almost," I said. "Isn't everyone?" She held me as I wept for loss, hers and mine. The loss of innocent lives, the loss of friends and loved ones, the loss of our home. But what had I lost? What had I left behind other than my arm? I knew, somewhere, that I would never be whole. My memories would never fully return. I left a huge chunk of my past in the rubble of that hospital, on a foreign world. I'd lost a part of me.